Well, for more analysis, we can speak now to Hameed Hakimi, who is a lead researcher on Afghanistan at Chatham House. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Some are saying that what's happening in Doha is the easy part. The hard part is going to be the talks between the various Afghan parties, namely the government in Kabul and the Taliban. What's your take?
I agree with that, but let's not forget that this is a historical moment. And also, I should remind the viewers that the war in Afghanistan is a 40-year war, over 18 years of which has been directly with the involvement of the US-led NATO troops and the Afghan government against the Taliban mainly. So from a historical perspective, in the recent history of Afghanistan, this is a very, very important deal for the Afghans, but also for the region. We're talking about a war that was recently categorized as having made the country, Afghanistan, less safe than Syria. So you're talking about a very serious war, and this is, in my view, a significant historical moment. But with caveat, for it to be successful, this is just a deal signing between the US and the Taliban. The real war is happening in Afghanistan, and for that to subside, of course, the Afghans have to speak to each other, and that the internationals and the regional players have to support them.
Yeah, but what seems quite central to this deal are the pledges that the Taliban are supposed to sign. Namely, one of them, for example, is to guarantee that Afghanistan will never again be used by jihadist groups as a base. I mean, do you think the American delegation is a bit naive, engaging with the Taliban in the first place and then trusting them to keep their word?
I think let's go a little bit backwards and see why we're here. We are here because this is America's longest war, and it has not been won militarily by any side, and that includes the Taliban. So for all purposes that we're here is because the war is not winnable militarily. So the sides have made their own concessions. For example, for the United States, the concession was that they sequenced the talks in a way that the Taliban spoke to the United States first, and then they were going to speak to the Afghan government and the political elite on the Afghan side. So that sequencing itself by the United States is a concession. The Taliban, their deputy leader recently had a published op-ed in the New York Times, which sparked a lot of criticism, but he was very clear that the Taliban would like the end of violence and that they would like to build the country with the other Afghans. They want to be part of the fabric of the society. So there are kinds of these rhetorics coming that look that there's concessions. And the reason that it's been sequenced in a way that we're witnessing is partly because the sides don't trust each other, and they're very clear about that.
Yeah, and I mean, Afghanistan is also in the grip of fresh political turmoil, a contested election there. And I'm just wondering whether the Taliban is being quite cunning here and is set to exploit the existing fractions that exist in Kabul right now in the political sphere.
I think that's a proper danger. That's a real danger to the gains, as we call it in the Western language, of the last 18 years in Afghanistan. The fact that you have a free media, the fact that you have a young generation, this is a transformed country, bigger cities, all of these gains that are made, the societal change that's happened. Because we only hear about the war, but I've had the privilege of working there, and I've seen some wonderful human beings, some of the best people I've worked with ever. So this is a talented country. We have to unleash that, and for that, the war has to stop. But obviously, the political bargaining that happens, all sides would like to exploit each other. The Taliban would like to exploit the United States' weaknesses and leverage whatever they can. The United States would do the same, and it will happen internally within the Afghan political elite fragmentations as well. But what is hopeful when I look at it is that everybody in Afghanistan that you speak to, including all political elite, those who also fought the Taliban and have been fighting, are saying that the peace has to take precedence. And that's why you saw that to some extent, for a couple of weeks at least, the presidential election dispute has been delayed because peace has taken priority. But also the United States obviously has its leverage. So they have asked the Afghan government to delay this. But there's a realization that you can't have elections at the cost of peace, and that's everybody's agreement. But You're absolutely right. There is the fragmentation in Afghanistan's political elite. We don't know about the Taliban. Once they're in the front and they're given that political space, they might have fragmentations that we don't know about. And then we're talking about a much more complex picture in the intra-Afghan period of talks.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for speaking to us, though. Hameed Hakimi, lead researcher on Afghanistan at Chatham House. Thank you.